Greetings and welcome back to our class in communication theory. Let's jump into chapter 1. We'll be brief here. I tended to be long-winded in that opening essay. So let's take a quick look at some of the major ideas from chapter 1. As you read it, it should be rather self-explanatory. Okay. What is a theory? Our textbooks provides this. A theory is a set of systematic, informed hunches about the way things work. I'll go along with this definition. I think I like that. It's a set of hunches, not just one little idea. Typically, a theory involves a little more complexity than, just one idea. We have to link some things together. They're informed. Well, let's back up. Yeah, informed hunches. You have studied a little bit. You know what you're talking about when you put a theory forward. You've been observing something. You've been pondering it, thinking about it. All these things we can call informed. You have a higher level degree in that subject and have studied rigorously and officially to learn about what you're theorizing. And it's also, it's systematic. We don't just, I have an idea, throw a theory out there, let's publish it. No, it's more, when we say systematic, you're following a method, you're following a procedure, so that you don't make a really big mistake. That's what procedures are for, to get things right. Get them right the first time, hopefully. So a theory is a set of systematic, informed hunches about the way things work. And I like the way things work part. You're figuring out why something does what it does, or how something operates, or how it works. The theory of gravity, why does this fall? I don't know that we really have a good explanation for that yet. Not nearly as good as the one for magnetism. But objects are attracted to one another. That's as much as I recall science being able to say. Why are they attracted? Well, we need a gravitational theory that gets a little deeper. Now, we do have a nice equation that helps us predict what the gravitational force is that attracts the objects together. That we do know. But these theories are always partial in one sense, and they can always be overturned, actually, if you're not careful. So are theories the same as facts? Well, the short answer at the bottom of the slide there is no. Well, not yet, anyway. We're probably on our way to a fact, but when you present a theory and then do a study or an experiment to test the theory to see if you're onto something, there's always an element of doubt. In the world of mathematics or of statistics, we call it, if I can recall the term here, I need more coffee. Uncertainty. Are we sure that A caused B? And we can often say we are 95% sure. And that's the threshold for the social sciences, psychology, sociology, communication, is that we are 95% sure that people react in this way when you communicate with them in that way. When you yell at somebody in anger, we are 95% sure that they will respond with another emotion of some sort. This would kind of be a psychological theory. Defensively, probably, and defend themselves against your anger. How are we 95% sure? Because we've been watching it all our lives, and somebody finally went to graduate school and said, well, nobody's ever proven that. So let's do a test. Let's get 100 undergraduates, sophomores that need extra credit, and let's do a test, and we'll have somebody yell at them, and then we'll see how they respond, and we will write it down, and then we will determine mathematically if we are 95% correct or not. And that seems like a high threshold, and it's that way for a reason. The number is, I guess, somewhat arbitrary. You see, in the pharmaceutical industry, you have to be 99.9% sure that your drug fixes the problem and doesn't have side effects beyond what you've described. And that's a much higher threshold of certainty. There's the word I'm looking for. It's a much higher threshold because people die when you're wrong. You know, people might get their feelings hurt when you yell at them, but they die when you're wrong about the drug. So we're only 5% unsure that our communication theories are off base somehow. And theories do get modified and improved over time. And I think uncertainty reduction theory, no, I'm sorry, relational dialectics is a theory like that. We'll get to it about halfway through the semester. And I recall last year, a lot of people really liked this theory because it really helps explain the tensions we have in a relationship with somebody else. I want privacy, I want to be together and have closeness. Well, we have a need for both, and how do we work it out in our day-to-day lives? It's a complex theory, but over the years they've added more and more dimensions where we have a dialectic tension going on that we try to resolve through communication. And the theory gets better and better each year. Now at some point a theory will get a little too complicated and it stops being so effective. But short answer there, yeah, theories approach the level of fact the more often and the more effectively they explain and predict. They used to say control, but that's not politically correct to say that anymore, so all the textbooks changed sometime after I left Arizona State and graduated with a PhD. There's always an element of statistical uncertainty in every theory. Now, there are theories that people say, this isn't a theory, this is a fact. They say that in the biology department about evolution. But they're being rhetorical with this. There still is uncertainty. It's just, you know, the theories that are accepted in the textbooks are pretty darn good ones. And they do explain a lot. But if we have parts of something that a theory can't explain, we don't just jump up and down and say, no, it's a fact. We're not talking about it in this classroom when a student raises an objection. What we are supposed to say, if we're real scientists, is, yes, there's interesting evidence that tends to work against the theory, and we need to consider that more closely and look at it and perhaps alter the theory to account for the new evidence. That's what real scientists do. That's what Einstein did when they're, you know, trying to test a bomb here. You don't want that thing going off early. Yeah, interesting example to pick there. They get pretty close to facts. He predicted we shoved these atoms together and we're going to have an explosion like this. Let's go try it out, Albert. And they did, and it worked, and quickly. And it's what happens often with science. Our military gets a hold of it and uses it to hurt people and control other people. So, yeah, theories get pretty good, pretty solid, but I'll draw a line and say no theory is ever an absolute fact. There's always going to be some little minor bit of uncertainty that an honest philosopher or scientist will deal with, and they'll think about it, they'll talk about it, they won't dismiss it and shout other people down. Too often that's what happens. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a specific case in the next lecture. Okay, images of a theory, and this helps some people. Theories get interlinked together, a network with main ideas, smaller ideas, all connected together in really strange ways. And I'm going to put a lecture on networking up here on the class website for you. I want you to watch this and just enjoy it. It's animated. RS Animate, I think, is the program they used, and it's just, I think Steven Pinker, is that his name, does an excellent job of explaining what a network is. And a network, right now, it's one of the leading communication theory is called systems theory. We're all connected together in these interlinked systems of relationships that can be very difficult to explain and predict, and very complex in the degree of interaction between people and such. But it is a good way to think of theory, because theories themselves get interlinked together. We're going to study about 36 theories in this textbook, and they're all happening all the time, every day with you, as you get up in the morning and have a little conversation with somebody you live with, and you're just reaffirming and supporting one another that we're a family here. And as you head out into the world and you're using turn signals to tell people behind you which way you're going, we all do that, don't we? Or as we order our coffee and want it just right, that double cream mocha latte with cinnamon sprinkles on top, with a little bit of milk. You got to get it just right. We communicate to do that, and then we listen to the radio, and we have, all of a sudden we've had 4 or 5 communication theories in operation all around us, and we work with them every day, and we learn the rules. People that really have trouble with social interaction have trouble figuring out what the rules are for these various theories we've got. But we'll talk more about that later as well. The lens is another way, and I did that with my little lens here in my first lecture. We look at things through the lens, and I can look at the keyboard here on my mouse, or the mouse, the keyboard, the computer, and I can see it better through this lens. But if I hold this lens up to try to look across the room, I just got blurriness and really weird stuff. So not every theory works the way, the best way for every idea. And then we got this map idea, and a good theory can help you map your way through life, through interactions, so that you're not looking in your high school yearbook and reading a letter and not understanding what's going on here. A good theory helps us to avoid problems like that, avoid getting lost. Now, one of the main communication theories, and if you've already had a few communication courses, you may have come across this one. It's called the Shannon and Weaver model of communication. And I'm going to kind of say, this model was invented by Bell telephone scientists in the 1940s, and it kind of explains what happens with a telephone line trying to talk to somebody on the other end, and you've got interference and noise in the way, and they just kind of adapted it out to, this is how humans communicate. And in one sense, I'm not going to disagree with it, but in another sense, that's not quite how communication works here. I also call this the football model of communication. I have a message, and so I'm going to put it in this coffee cup, and I'm going to pick it up and I'm going to toss it to you, and you're going to catch it, and then you're going to get the message out and read it, or receive it, and you interpret it. And it's far more complex than this simple model shows us. So, if you're in one of those fields where you're still noticing this model in your textbooks, just kind of smile, nod your head, and remember that in our communication theory class, Dr. J said, no, it doesn't really work that way. Far more complex than that. What I do like is, there's often a failure to communicate. That classic phrase from the movie Cool Hand Luke, and people yelling at each other with their bullhorns. That's not really communication. The meta-communication is clear. We'll learn more about meta-communication, that I'm really upset with you, and I'm right and you're wrong. I know things better than you do, and they're both thinking the same thing, so they're trying to raise their voice and power over the other person. Not a healthy relationship, and not leading to a healthy relationship. You got the next little diagram there of a man and a woman talking. We have some gender styles communication theory going on here, And you notice their little dotted lines are zooming around and swirling around in the air around each other, and they're just a little bit different than one another. And not speaking the same language, no, just probably, as the gender styles theory goes, they're talking at cross purposes. And we'll look at that theory later in the semester. So getting close to communicating, not quite. I really like this last photo here, the big one. It's actually a painting called The Bond of Union. What I like in this is the two people in this are just made of these strips swirling around, and if you look closely, they're connected to one another at the top and at the bottom, and each person is kind of incomplete. And if you want to look at this a little more metaphorically, we're looking at a picture of a relationship here. And if you look at one of the links off the guy's head, it links through the other guy's head and back into his. And I just somehow, artistically, this artist captured what I feel relationships and communication, and relationships are made of communication, verbal and nonverbal. This really captures it in an interesting sense. And if you want to have a good model of communication in your head to help you navigate through your relationships in life, this isn't a bad one. Now, some people won't get intertwined with you like that. They stay aloof. The relationship's not going to be that close then. Other people get up real close and personal, and the relationship is going to be very deep. My wife and I try to have that kind of relationship, and we spent 3 months traveling in Mexico, the two of us sleeping in very small rooms, living in our small Nissan pickup truck with a little cap on the back that we slept in, cooked our meals in, kept all our clothes, kept food in, driving around in the cab of the truck just a foot apart all day, every day, and had really just a wonderful time meeting people and getting to know each other much better. And being forced in a situation like this where we're partners, we need to think alike here, this just isn't going to work out. So the bond of union, yeah, we are somewhat made up of one another even, and each relationship we have with another person is unique. We'll talk about that theory later in the semester. And each relationship, it's unique and it's its own thing. Some are deeper than others, some shallow, but they are unique. And I think this picture, if you want a picture for your head, if you're visual, this is the one that you want to have. All right, our textbook offers this definition, and I like it. It's sufficiently vague that just about any way we want to look at this fits, and I think it has the main elements. It's a relational process. Remember, relationship, intertwined heads, of creating and interpreting messages. Because there is that creating of a message. I'm trying to put my ideas into words that adequately convey the idea to you. And you're receiving those words, and I just said the word epistemological, and you're trying to interpret my message, and we got a little problem there with a big word you don't know. So if I say the origin of knowledge instead of epistemological, that probably helps communication happen between the two people there. This is from the scene from When Harry Met Sally, and yeah, I don't think that epistemological was a word in that movie. So we interpret messages then, and they elicit a response. Something happens because of it. There's an action due to this. Even if the action is, I agree, we are a little more connected than we were, we are thinking alike, or maybe it brings on a bit of conflict, and now we're into another set of theories to help resolve conflict between us. So, messages, yes, creation is happening, interpretation is happening, all within the context of a relationship, and typically there's a response from it. Because you can put a good message into a text, send it to a friend, and they get it, and they look at that message, and you don't hear back from them. what's happening to the relationship? Where's that response? So that's, although, you know, when your friend doesn't respond to your text, and you know good and well they received it, we tend to think, oh, they must not have got the text. When no, it probably went through. It may not have gone through in 5 seconds or instantly, but they got out of the basement of the building where they're at, and they got 6 texts all at once. They got the text. The response, the non-response, is a response, is it not? There's a saying in communication, you cannot not communicate. Even the act of not communicating with somebody is an action, and it communicates something. Okay, let's just leave it at that and get in there, read your textbook, enjoy a class like this one that talks about practical issues, mostly in ideas that are understandable, and you don't have to do math. Isn't that the great part here? But if you don't get your communication right, you can lose friends, you can lose relatives, things can get really bad for you. If you make mistakes in math, the stakes are much lower. So enjoy the textbook and go out there and communicate with people. Thanks for listening.